the digital has consumed us.
Yeah. I was part of that production cycle, which I am now trying to break.
Because so much of journalism has shifted to the digital.
Yeah.
And in digital, there is such a huge pressure to continuously produce something,
yeah.
right? Because if you don't get views, you don't get money, you don't get your revenue.
Right. During the Air India crash, right, we saw stories like what are the 15 series, Netflix series about air crashes that really people sit and do research and write these stories. Why would you use somebody's brain for that?
Hello, friends. Welcome to the second episode of Alt News Gup Shup. This is Prateek and Diti here. Diti joined Alt News about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And she's a senior editor in the organization. In the first episode, Indra and I had a brief conversation, and Indra is also the other senior editor in the organization. Then there's Priyanka, who handles Alt News Hindi. You might have seen her for a very long time. Priyanka has been around since 2018. It's been over 7 years. Diti, what has it been like? You've been an editor in other organizations. So how is it different to be an editor in a fact-checking organization?
First of all, a lot of my training did come from business news. Even though I wasn't writing like company news and a lot of breaking stories, but my journey started with a lot of business. Like a business news setup. So first of all, the content is different, and for some time I was handling general news as well, but there is a very defined cycle in the way things work, like in an agency or in a, like I worked in a press, almost like an online version of a press setup, right? So where, I mean, not in the agency, but in a lot of other setups, like where there are online desks, news gets produced in a certain way, like you get tweets and you track social media and for information, and like, I mean, I am now writing the stories. I'm now editing stories which I would have, a few years ago written myself, that, oh, this video was viral, and so this person tweeted it, especially if there are some famous personalities. Like at that time, Anand Mahindra would just tweet everything, right? So yeah, so we were in the I was part of that production cycle, which I am now trying to break. So at that point, like, we would take, say, tweets from ANI, PTI without verifying, without double checking, without doing that due diligence, and if that agency has said it, for us that would be it, like the copy would go out. And now I'm learning that, I mean, that the way I was doing these things, how flawed that system is, because you are only getting one kind of information. So yeah, it's been quite an eye-opening experience for me. And
so yesterday I tweeted out something. PTI went and interviewed Shatrughan Sinha yesterday, and PTI's question was that what does Shatrughan Sinha think about the possibility of a cyber attack in the Air India crash? And then Shatrughan Sinha is putting out, you're saying whatever. So I simply tweeted that, this is a classic case of news manufacturing.
Yeah.
That Shatrughan Sinha is neither an expert in cybersecurity, nor is he an expert in aviation. So why is he being asked? And my understanding of this is that, because so much of journalism has shifted to the digital.
yeah,
And in digital, there is such a huge pressure to continuously produce something, right? Because if you don't get views, you don't get money, you don't get your revenue. And there's that direct proportionality. So what I essentially wrote was that, news organizations as such haven't figured out the digital space. They, the digital has consumed us. And that we are, putting out such stories which, PTI is fairly well regarded. And for PTI to go and do something like that is not, it's disappointing. So
You remember you had we were having this discussion about how we are not writing headlines the way they should be written, but like we are writing SEO friendly headlines, and for the longest time that was part of my training. Like that's part of, again, like when so much of your formative time is spent in doing that. Like for instance, if right now the Iran Israel thing is going on, in my head I like these are keywords that should be there in the headline: Iran, Jaffa, Tel Aviv, Tehran, Israel. And I'm just like, the headline has become so long, people are not getting the point of it. Like, as an editor, my point should be how can I make it as how can I cut all that clutter and just present it in the crispest way possible. But I'm somewhere at the back of my mind thinking SEO wise. So it has shaped, like, because my training has come from online so much, it has shaped the way we think, right? And you also used the term journalism last time. Do you want to talk? It's a very fun word.
yeah, so I met this friend of mine in Delhi recently, and she gave me this new term which I'm using in every interview, wherever I'm talking. It is journalism. That what we're doing is not journalism, and what we're doing is journalism. She went to her editor, and the editor said that, oh, these four issues are there. Let's churn it. Let's churn it. So I've sort of been using this term a lot, but this also comes from a space that social media, journalism in the age of social media is governed by two rules, and those two rules are that number of views is equal to the amount of money you earn, and the amount of money you spend is equal to the amount of reach you get. So these are the two golden rules of social media, and journalism is having to accommodate these two rules and do all the journalism around these two rules. And my understanding is that in this you can't do journalism, you can only do journalism.
Yeah.
Because you keep having to churn.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you that from your previous experience of working on a digital desk, how much pressure was there to sort of to put out stories and things like that? Like how many stories on an average would you edit in a day and things like that, and people who are working with you?
So shifts work very differently there, and the pressure is. I mean, I think for the first few weeks that I was here and I was just helping out. I mean, I felt like I think I started off sometime when it was a lean period around December, right? So it was very lean. For some time I was like, why is nothing happening? Because I was so used to constantly being bombarded and working like non-stop. And it's not all places that I've worked at have been like that. Some places have been more, okay, think deeper, like let's not produce breadth, let's produce depth. And so it's not been uniform, but generally in an online desk the way things work is, you get a set of wires, so you blindly just publish wire. I mean, not blindly, like you think about, okay, what's important to your audience, so you get that line, right? This is published directly from a syndicated feed. It's not like it's automatically going. Somebody has to manually track those and push out what is relevant. You match it with the relevant picture choices, etc. And people don't realize that also takes time. It takes a lot of work to do those, to filter out, to ask someone to publish. Then sometimes wires also make mistakes, so you have to give it one final look. So that's the wires. Then you see what other news agencies have that you don't have. Then those are called pickups. So you assign those to people, so you edit in a 7 or 8 hour shift. You're constantly, every hour you're at least like one, I mean, you're at least producing, I don't know how many, depends on the size of the team, but one person's like constantly, easily in an hour you would push out 15 to 20 wires minimum. And then you have stories that are assigned to people. So by the end of the so you have to push out those stories because others competition has it and you don't. So you track competition, what they have and what you don't have. Then there are also original stories that deskers have to do, that okay, can we pursue this for a longer time? But those again, you don't get like 1 week to do those stories. You have to push it out in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So I remember there was one time when there was an Aryan Khan, Shah Rukh Khan's son got arrested, and we had to do an explainer on what the laws around it say, and finding punishments, etc. What thing requires what. So that needed some study. So because a shift is so busy, I wasn't being able to get time to do it. So I had to stay back for a few hours, and then only then could I push out that story. So similarly, like if you have to do special stories or your own like byline stories, then you have to do it outside of your shift work and then put it across, because your shift consumes a lot of your time. Then there are galleries, or the infamous galleries. So in a lot of news organizations you'll see these very very almost sleazy headlines and very suggestive photos. They might not, I mean, those are just meant to be clickbait, right? And they get a lot of views, etc. They're shared widely, and these are just some things you'll see at the bottom or top of the page. So those things also, people manually do these things every day. You have to publish wrap ups, then you have to up, like you there, social media is generally integrally a part of online desk. So, and if there's also a print version, you have to pick out all the stories that print has done, you have to push them on the website, then you have to social them individually. So for each of these you have to, like, a lot of work needs to be done. So it's constantly production. Yeah.
So if you had to, let's say, if you had to change this, what would you do? If you had to, because fact checking cycle is a very
Very
different
different. Yeah.
cycle. So let's not talk about, we may come to that, but I have not worked in a newsroom, so I don't have any experience of a
Yeah.
newsroom. And the fact is that so much news has to go out. There are only so many people. How would you change? What would be a better system for news, or especially in the age of digital? What do you think would be a better
First
system?
of all, again, like my experience is also limited. Like I cannot speak for everybody who does this, and this is what I have understood about how things work. But first of all, I think wires, like keeping having people to publish wires, is it adds a fair bit of workload, and I feel like people should not, like, I mean, like that blind production, like give us people to write stories that actually matter. Don't randomly, like during election time, or I mean, I'll give you a more recent example. During the Air India crash, right, we saw stories like what are the 15 series, Netflix series about air crashes, that what people sit and the work go, like it doesn't come out automatically. People sit and do research and write these stories. Why would you use somebody's brain for that?
For Times Now published the story where they deleted it later on. We saw there's this tweet that these are the 15 Netflix shows that you can
Yeah.
watch in the aftermath of the Air India crash and
Yeah,
things like
which talk about air crashes, etc.
yeah.
Then something like this happened during Shinji pointed it out, right? During the Sunita Williams's
Yeah.
like when they were trying to bring her back in some way, like what happens if she dies, and that was like I cannot even imagine that
Yeah.
passing through a desk. So what I would change is, yeah, maybe like just do like these kind of brainless stories or things that we absolute, like not produce for the sake of producing, but produce, like, I mean, in my last organization where they would produce one solid story, one solid explainer, but that would be so well researched and in depth, and like don't go chasing volume, like chase quality. Yeah.
But is the senior management of these big news organizations, are they having these internal discussions? Are you aware?
I think somewhere it comes up when somebody is burnt out. But
Yeah.
online does work in a very different way. And I mean, if you think this is the pace of online, TV is a lot worse, right? And a
Yeah.
lot more production happens there. But I'm not sure these discussions happen for online newsrooms. I'm sure somebody somewhere must be saying, why are we writing this? Why are we producing this? Some desker will be like, क्यों लिख रहे हैं हम ये, मतलब burn out हो रहा है types. But other than that, I'm not. I think people are aware, but like you said, it's a cycle that both feed into each other. You do want more traffic on your website, because I mean, websites don't make money otherwise, right? It's only through ads. So unless they are completely independent of that, like it's both feed into each other. So even if there is awareness and there are discussions, you can't do away with that. So yeah.
Okay. Another thing I wanted to know, that in Alt News we don't have a social media policy per se,
Yeah.
as to who can write what. Generally, whenever someone new joins an organization, I tell them that don't respond in anger. Okay.
Yeah.
There, and that is primarily because there's so much attack. There's
Yeah.
so many people attacking us for our stories, etc. So the one thing that I tell everyone is that don't respond in anger, because that is almost always a bad response. Uh, but other than that, there is no social media policy per se. Did you have social media policies in your the organizations you work with,
Yeah.
and what kind of what were those policies?
So there are style sheets generally. First of all, for I mean editorial and overall has a fixed set of
I'm
policies.
talking about personal social media accounts.
Okay. So that also is part of their editorial code of conduct, and so part of social media is, yeah. I mean, first of all, do not. I mean, if you are associated with the organization, you cannot, or rather, you should not post things that could that could make it seem like, your journalism is biased, or the organization you're associated with, that your journalism is biased, and their journalism is biased, and it's not enough to say retweets are not endorsements, or these are my personal views. At least agency journalists have a very strict policy about not tweeting out too much of personal stuff, not just not responding in anger, but not just promoting organizational work, not responding to trolls at all, actually. And if there is a correction to be made, which is I mean, policies around corrections are what, I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I think that's where the organizations, like, where they, how transparent they are lies, because ideally, if something has been corrected, they have to post on social media. They have to be very transparent that an earlier version of our story was this. We have changed it with the same or the different URL, and you, all of those things also have to be posted. So that is part of social media policy also. Apart from that, it's just general guidelines on how often to post, when to post, what kind of stuff to post. But for individual journalists, it is just a generally understood, how do you say, like, generally understood theme, that you should not ideally be posting or responding to people that makes it seem like, your work. I mean, that will reflect in your work. So
Okay.
yeah, it's not hard set. Like, there's an
Huh.
AP manual which clarifies these things, but it's not set in stone for every organization. They have slightly fluid rules. Yeah.
But what is your view on, like, my view on what social media conduct should be is that, number one, I feel that it is okay to be authentic on social media. It is not necessary. Firstly, that I don't think that that, like, for example, I have a political view. I have a strong political view.
Yeah.
Okay, and that I have expressed on multiple forums. But there's a difference between having a strong political view and a journalistic process. That is, for example, as we speak, we are writing a story on how ANI tweet, which is ANI has never tweeted that.
Yeah, like, somebody made up an ANI tweet.
Someone made up an ANI tweet, and ANI has never tweeted, and we're doing a story on it. But we have also been super critical of ANI.
Yeah.
So just because we are super critical of ANI doesn't mean that, and we will be the first one to point this out. I mean, I think Zubair has already tweeted this out. So just because we are critical of what ANI does not mean that we are not able to see if there is misinformation which is targeted to ANI. So because I have learned journalism on the job, I feel that it is okay to be authentic on social media, and that does not mean that you can't do your job well. So where do you stand on this?
No, I do agree, because from time to time, like, I mean, it's not like editors don't post, and places that I
And
worked at.
especially senior editors post all
Yeah,
the time.
senior, yeah.
The rules are for people who are not in
Not
positions of power.
exactly. So these are again like rules that are made to keep to make the organization look a certain way. So and I am of the opinion that, as long as what you say does not reflect in your stories, and you are not spreading hate online, or you're not doing something for which you can be called out I mean, having a strong political, I mean, I'm trying to differentiate between having a strong political view versus being wild. As long as you're not, like, to me that matters, like, you
Yeah.
cannot be wild online.
Of course.
And I don't think having a political view should be a problem, and I don't think organizations should be telling people not to post political stuff. Yeah, don't post defamatory stuff which will get
Because
you
increasingly, I know someone from India Today was chucked out because they posted something which, and I think it has happened a couple of times in India Today, whereas their senior editors keep posting tweets about these issues all the time.
Yeah.
But when it comes to someone junior, they
Yeah,
they were
the
asked
bar
to
is different.
yeah,
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
asked to leave the organization.
I think someone did us. I can't remember last year. Sometime someone had done this. I think it was Caravan, but I could be wrong. They'd done this story on how all these network 18 control channels, right? So for I mean, how closely they track the social media of these employees, current, past, former, and so many, like, they have trouble finding jobs elsewhere because of the kind of things they have posted. Because again, this is where narrative setting is happening, right? So like when agencies do it, I still have some sympathy for it, because they're trying to, like, they're somewhere at the back of their head, like they have the same rules for editors as well. It's a common code of conduct. But when it comes to Indian news organizations, it's where we see a very obvious difference. There's a, the rules are different for different classes of employees, so that's very obviously there. But uh, this difference in how employees are treated, for sure, like it happens, and it happens very, it's a very unique thing, to interesting and unique component that applies to Indian news media organizations. Yeah.
Okay. So, what are you working on presently?
Right now, I think I'm my next story will be on how not to use uh, Grok and what's Meta's of the chatbots, AI tools.
Meta AI. It's called Meta AI.
Perplexity, right? Ask Perplexity.
No, Ask Perplexity is a different company.
Okay, okay. So
But
yeah,
Ask Perplexity and Grok both have become very popular
very
on.
popular. Yeah, like
Yeah.
why? What's like what happens when you use these tools for fact checking? And how they can be wrong, and how they hallucinate. So how they, like, that's the next thing I'm
Yeah,
working on.
I think that's a very important story. I think another media organization has also done this story.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that the reason why it's very important is because, for example, even during this whole Israel-Iran thing and before India-Pakistan thing, you see there's so much content being produced on social media, so many videos being put out, and everybody's going under the video and asking Grok, is this true? Ask Perplexity, is this true? And that is not the best idea. And we have seen in multiple cases where AI has generated incorrect answers, and then they have been prompted to say, "Oh, this is incorrect," and then say, "Oh, we got this incorrect."
Yeah.
So there is a lot of hallucination, and I hope the story explains the concept of what is AI hallucinating.
Yeah, yeah.
So
There's one question that I have for you, though.
Yeah.
So this is again related to the news production cycle and how we do our work, right? And in the last episode we spoke about how we are focusing not on volume but on depth primarily. Like even in fact checks, how can we make this clearer? Even in our long forms, like we recently did this story on the victims in Kashmir, and that was a long story where we went into detailed accounts of what people did. So
Yeah.
and I mean, what is your view on the fact that we are allowing these spaces and we are allowing these voices to not be curtailed in some ways? Our long forms are longer than usual because also we are not trying to fit into that mold of of how not just news stories work, but also how online how like a short story might be pushed up further. Like we're not catering to the algorithm per se.
Yeah, I think number one, it is a proven fact, not a proven fact. It is a fact that long forms don't get as many views, and the readership drops. As I think this story must have been like 5,000 words or something like
Yeah,
that.
almost.
But I feel that long forms are very important because see, readership. My understanding is that uh, readership which manages to readers who manage to read through those 5,000 words, they are also the people who are interested in understanding these issues.
Yeah.
And it is not necessary that everyone has to read long forms. It's okay that we have all kinds of audience. We have uh, people from all economic classes. Reading is also, being able to read a long form is also a privilege. Not everyone can read long text. It is people who've grown up reading can read long text. So it is a matter of class as well. And so, but because it does not get views, long forms have pretty much gone away. It is only places like Caravan, etc., which are continuing the tradition of long form. But I feel that they are very, very important, because even if they inform a small section of audience, that is important.
Important, yeah. Yeah. And like, what's your view on like the profiles that we are doing? And we're still getting there. We're still writing more, but
So we do multiple profiles. So when there's an individual who we see is repeatedly putting out misinformation and hate speech on social media, then we typically profile them. And the reason why we profile them is, I would give an analogy. That is, let's say if internet is like a highway, and if there is someone who is jumping the signal multiple times, then they should be fined and their license should be taken away, because they're endangering other people. And so people who repeatedly put out misinformation don't delete it. These days, hardly anyone deletes misinformation. They don't delete it. And when they don't delete it, what it means is that they know something is false, and yet they are choosing for it to be online, which makes it a case of disinformation. Uh, and so then people who are indulging in disinformation again and again, they are like the people who are regularly breaking the traffic signal just to go ahead, and that they should be taken off the road. And that is why profiling individuals on social media who are indulging in this behavior is important. That right now we don't have a policy. That what do you do with people who are indulging in repeated
also because
misinformation?
anybody can have a verified account, right? You don't
Yeah.
know which is a credible source of information and
Yeah.
which is not. Yeah.
Yeah, and plus I want to add that right now, as a nation, we don't have a policy. Globally also, we don't have a policy. We don't know how to deal with disinformation. This is a case of disinformation, because the person knows it is incorrect, and yet they choose that post to stay alive. And so we don't know how. There's no policy around disinformation. But if and when a policy comes, then it can only come through this route, because we have to keep reinforcing that there is this certain behavior on social media which is equivalent to people breaking the signal at every point, and that they shouldn't be allowed to drive on the road. So yeah.
Yeah. And yeah.
Okay. So that is it from the second episode of Alt News Gup Shup. Thank you for being with us.
And if you like our work, please consider donating to us, because it takes a lot of work, time, effort, and I can tell you that we all put a lot of work into this. And please do share this video and tell us in the comments if you would like for us to speak on certain topics. We will try to do the Hindi thing when we have the right people who can converse in that way. But please, share, subscribe, and donate to Alt News if you think our work is important.
Or subscribe to YouTube. You can also subscribe to YouTube.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.